I'll start out by saying that I've had a problem all my life with being lazy. It was really bad, though, in the late 90s. I had gone to college, and after my first year, it didn't quite work out for me, so I joined the Air Force, became a Chinese linguist, and ended up spending 4 years in the Air Force getting my degree. And after that, I ended up working for a large company, and what I basically did was I'd go to work, I'd come home, and I'd play video games, and I'd sleep, and then I'd repeat that process. And it was even so bad that I got an apartment with a parking garage, and I would drive from one parking garage to the other parking garage for like all week long. I would never, ever leave the house except to go to work and back. So I admitted I had a problem. And what I felt was that I was in a place that I'd grown up all my life. I lived on the East Coast in Virginia and then ended up in Maryland. And I felt like, when you have one of those flavor ice, those ice pops and you suck all the flavor out of it, I felt like I had sucked all the flavor out of the East Coast. I was bored of it, and I wanted to move. And I thought that idea of exploration and adventure would happen if I moved to a new place. So what I did was I packed up my car, put as much as I could in it, and I moved to the Pacific Northwest and went to Seattle and started working in web development for a large company out there who makes operating systems. And I had not a very good experience there, but I thought, we're in the Pacific Northwest, and nobody smokes, nobody drinks, everybody's outside hiking, they're always wearing, gear from REI, and what did I end up doing? I ended up going from my apartment to work and back again. This time my apartment was actually, parking was outdoors, so I did do some outdoor work then. So anyway, it wasn't just that. I did do a little exploration, but I really just didn't get out of that rut of going to work and going back home. So what I didn't know was going on in the meantime was that there was a satellite system that, at first I thought it was just, that Hertz and Everlast system that you have in your car for turn-by-turn directions. I didn't know how that technology worked. And that there are these 24 satellites in space, and they're creating this sense of triangulation in order to determine your position on the planet. I mean, it was all mysterious for me. But what happened was, if anybody's familiar with GPS technology, in 2000, selective availability was in place. And there was basically an error that was in GPS signals that if you had a civilian GPS unit, you could only get about 300 feet accuracy. If you're in the military, you can get 20 foot and less. And what the Clinton administration did is they turned the switch off, and selective availability was gone, and every GPS unit in the world immediately had an upgrade, and it was down to 20-foot accuracy. There was no blue switch. I don't know how they did it, but that's how I illustrate it. So there was this guy, Dave Ulmer, and he was on a news group, and he was so excited about this idea, he thought, if I place something out in the world and I post, I hide it, and I post the coordinates online, do you think anybody will find it? So he took a bucket, he put a can of beans in it, I don't know why he did this, and he put some bad movies and a logbook and basically a notebook, and he went out to the side of the road, he placed it, and he said, all right, this is a new game called the Great American GPS Stash Hunt. Go out and place a container, mark it, and put some stuff in it, and then if you find it, write your name in the logbook, and if you take something out, put something back, and then put it back in its place. Well, that was kind of a nerdy activity, but it was exciting for me. I was basically working for a .com at the time, and I was looking for a distraction because it was 2000, when all the businesses were going under, and I pretty much saw the light at the end of the tunnel there. So I was looking for a distraction, and this was my distraction. Somebody brought a GPS unit. It was a handheld device. I'm like, I didn't even know you could have one of these things. So I went out and convinced my wife to buy one of these things. They're like $120. That's a lot of money for one of my many distractions. I've owned a Beta. I've owned a Laserdisc. I've owned HD DVD. So I make bad technology decisions. So I bought this GPS device, and I found that there was a cache about an hour and a half away. So what did I do? I became a hiker. And I followed the arrow because I didn't have an expensive GPS unit. It just said, it's that way, so, start driving. Good luck. And I had a Saturn, so I was on these backcountry logging roads, which have large boulders you have to navigate on my, two-wheel drive. It was a front-wheel drive, though, so that was cool. So we ended up on this, I went with a friend, and I took this long hike, and it was at the top of a mountain. I had no idea what I was doing. I was unprepared. I didn't have enough water. I brought a puppy. which I thought, exercise is great, bring a puppy. And ran out of water when we got to the top, and I had a miserable time. It was awful. I didn't have bug spray. I didn't think there were bugs in the Pacific Northwest. I didn't do a lot of research. But when I got up to the top of the mountain and found this, it was a 3x5 card box, and it had a disposable camera, so you could take a picture of yourself and leave it there, and a logbook, and for some reason, a Sunny Delight drink, which, that's why we have a rule, no food in caches. So I was so excited by this object that I found that it really got me hooked. And, when I was coming down the hill back to my car, and I'll explain too, I'm sorry. If you aren't familiar with geocaching, they're in many different forms. The one that I found on the top of the mountain in the lower left-hand corner, that was basically what it is. But it'll range from a ammo can that you'll find out in the woods to an Altoids tin that's magnetized and stuck under a park bench, to that really small one sort of in the center, and that's called a nano cache. So those are stuck on stop signs, that sort of thing. And then they can look like other things. One's in Portland where it's a phone booth, and actually the cache pops open when you dial the right number. So when I was coming down the hill, I thought, first I wasn't prepared, so there's probably a better way to do this, or at least share my experience with other people so they don't do the same thing I did. There really wasn't a dedicated website. There's a guy named Mike Teague who created this website, but he was just copying and pasting stuff from news groups. I thought, if I could search by zip code and get, search results near me and stuff. And there was a certain part of it that I really wanted people to do this so I could go find more, because I'm going to run out quickly. So built this website and called it Geocaching.com. And, there was some conversations about the connotations of the word stash, and it might not be a good idea to call it that. So we combined geography and caching, or hiding something, together in the form of geocaching. So I also had to figure out how to sell it, or sell something, so I could actually keep this going, because it costs money to maintain a website. So what happened was my website was picked up on Slashdot, and then CNN picked up on it after New York Times wrote a weekend thing on it. And I was like, okay, well, it can't live in my living room anymore. I need to put this somewhere else. So we actually sold T-shirts and put a logo on it and stuff, and raised money on 144 T-shirts. And I can't go into much detail, but there's also, as the game was going, we were finding ways to find out how to track things as they move from cache to cache. So if you're familiar with Where's George, the idea of a tracking code that you can enter in that goes to a web page that you can follow the travels of an object as it moves from place to place. So we saw these tracking codes. We sold these tracking codes. And then there was a problem of growth. How are we going to grow this thing? We're actually reviewing every listing on the website as it grows. There were 75 caches when we started. How are we going to have this growth work? And we ended up basically enlisting the aid of the community members, where today we have over 200 volunteers around the world that participate and review listings to make sure that they at least have fundamental guidelines in place. And they work with local land managers to ensure that, if there's a permit required, then they get that permit and that sort of thing. So 10 years later, 2010, we had our millionth cache, and we have over 5 million participants in the world. A year later, we're at 1.5 million caches in the world. So we had over 500,000 new caches listed on the website. Also, my slides are out of order. But what's happened in the last few years is the iPhone, and with the iPhone gives you the ability to actually do this live. Before, it was very much a part of downloading your GPS coordinates to your device or entering them by hand, going out and having a disconnected experience, finding a container, and then coming back and logging that experience. So now, today, you can actually log those in real time. You can, go geocaching whenever you want to, and it's either the spontaneous, experience, which has changed quite a bit. And as a result, we have live APIs that people can use so they can create their own applications. But we have over 70 videos on YouTube if you want to go and check them out. And they're all about, in the 10 years of when we did geocaching, we thought, how do we tell those stories about geocachers who are out there that are going geocaching? Because it hits a good group of families. So between 6 to 12 is kind of the really great time for geocaching for kids, and a lot of young families like to do it. But we have RVers that go geocaching. We have just a large gamut of people that actually participate in it, because you can kind of do it any way you want. Some people call it not an activity, a sport, but a rash, which is a recreation, activity, sport, hobby, because you never quite know how you're going to define that experience outdoors. But what drove me outside was the sense of a eureka moment. And a eureka moment, eureka actually means I found it. And there's this moment when I was having this awful experience going up on this hike, and I arrived at the cache location, and the discovery of that cache was what enticed me to continue to play. I mean, it was so good. It totally wiped away my whole experience. And I've heard this before, that, if you don't have something go wrong, then there's no story. So even in that, what kind of experience would I say when I said I walked there and I found something and it was kind of okay? You're actually having those experiences, that journey that led you to that location, but it's that eureka moment that really motivated me to find the next one. And if you take the cache away, what kind of eureka moments can you create in your lives and in other people's lives, whether it's in education, having that sense of discovery, and people taking that journey to find that final location or that idea. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you very much.